Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hindu Explainer series. I am Kushagra Goel and very warm greetings from Doppler Tutorial. So yesterday we discussed the political situation in Iran and the electoral mechanism there, which in turn is an important topic for CLAT aspirants in general and something that we had discussed that we would. So I'm glad that we were able to cover it. And in terms of that, there was just one specific doubt that all of you had, that who selects the supreme leader. So we go back to the illustration that I picked up yesterday. The supreme leader is appointed by this assembly of experts, who in turn is vetted by the voters. The voters elect the people who are elected on this assembly of experts. All right. Now, however, who can run as supreme leader is something that is decided by the Guardian Council. Now, who appoints the Guardian Council? The previous supreme leader or the new head of judiciary. So as long as Ayatollah Ali Khamenei lives, he will remain as the supreme leader. There is no timeline as to when he abdicates. So he may decide to abdicate on his own. All right, it is very similar to the situation that happens in the Vatican City or Catholic Roman Church, right? So this is the scenario in Iran, the supreme leader. The supreme leader also has to be a cleric of Shia Islamism, not Islam in general, but Shia Islamism, because Iran as a state believes in Shia Islam as its official religion. All right, so that is the criteria for appointment of supreme leader. Right now, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is the supreme leader and he will retain that position as long he lives on. All right, so then moving on to our newspaper analysis on the front page. On the front page, so we have two policies that we have been discussing. One is about GST on 14 COVID related goods. So this was something that a GOM was formed, that is a group of ministers was formulated by the GST Council, and then the council has now decided to retain GST of 5% on COVID-19 vaccines. In terms of relief, it has reduced GST on 2 medicines for COVID-19. Now, what this puts in front is the system of taxation in India, that is GST, and the GST Council and its composition. All right. So that in itself is something that is related to economic news. All right. So make sure that you note that down. All right. Then on the right hand side is the new declassification policy that gets nod. Now, what is this policy? So a couple of days ago, we had discussed the Q&A, which had talked about that India does not have a proper declassification policy, archives, records. So now the new policy has been put in that after 25 years, documents by default will be declassified. Documents prior to 25 years, which have not been declassified, will be then discussed on case-to-case basis. And the committee headed by the Joint Secretary of Ministry of Defense, comprising representatives of the services, Ministry of External Affairs, Home Affairs, or other organizational prominent military historians, will be formulated, who will then decide whether certain documents should be released or not. For example, documents about the 1962 war, document about the deaths surrounding Subhash Chandra Bose, they have not been declassified yet. 25 years have already been passed. So that was something the committee will decide, and the committee will also decide whenever the 25 years time period is over. Documents, for example, 25 years later, someone wants to document what decisions were taken during the Balakot airstrike, or what had happened during the next day, 2 days later to the Balakot airstrikes, when Pakistan scrambled its aircraft. In turn, when 2 military accidents took place in India, an aircraft was shot down and a pilot was arrested in Pakistan who was returned, but also a missile was fired by Indian Air Force which hit its own helicopter, resulting in casualties. So someone wants to write about this 25 years later. Now that is what these documents declassification would be about. All right. However, the committee will retain the right to not provide information or every information. So there might be certain classified information. So what remains classified, what doesn't, is something that the committee will decide. All right. Apart from this, on the front page, more political news not relevant for us. Then is about Operation Olivia to rescue the olive ridley turtles. This is an operation that the Indian Coast Guard runs on the coast surrounding Odisha, where the olive ridley turtles come during the winter time period. And in this regard, the olive ridley turtles, it is their nesting season. They are on the category of International Union for Conservation of Nature's red list. In that, they are on vulnerable categories. So it is our responsibility to protect and ensure their nesting areas. So the operation name, the animal, is something that you need to note down related to environmental news. All right. Then moving on, apart from this, on national news, as you know, today is a Sunday newspaper, so we don't have editorials. All right. So make sure that you are revising whatever we have discussed over the past week. All right. Make sure that you cover all the important topics, especially about the political system in Iran. That becomes very, very important. Then moving on, Mehul Choksi denied bail by Dominica High Court. On what grounds has he been denied bail? This is the same ground on which Nirav Modi has also been denied bail by the UK court, even though his extradition has been pending. This is, for example, distinct to Vijay Mallya. Vijay Mallya is not in jail, but Nirav Modi's, all of them are economic fugitives. Why? Because there is a chance of a flight risk that this person may run away again. All right. Therefore, his bail has been denied. All right. Then apart from this, Coast Guard inducts 3 AILET M3 category helicopters, HAL to supply 16 choppers by mid-year. Not every news related to induction of equipment becomes important from defense. All right. So therefore, I'm not marking them. Then moving on. So it's a very political newspaper today. It's more and more about political news. But what becomes important for us is on the international space. So this year is also the centenary year of the formation of Communist Party of China. On July 1, it will be 100 years of Communist Party of China formation. All right. And they were the one who won the civil war after independence of China. And since then, the country has been ruled by the Communist Party. In that regard, the highlights from what PLA has been doing, the Pakistan's People's Republic of China's army, what it has been doing is talking about the campaign that the army undertook in LAC, where it took territories at the Pangong Tso Lake and around the LAC border. Now, this is a quick revision for us, and it also gives in to highlight that the intention of China was never to go back. We have disengagement with China has only happened in the Galwan Valley and the north and south banks of the Pangong Tso Lake. Apart from this, Indian forces are still engaged with Chinese at Despang Plains, Demchok, Gogra Hills and Hot Springs. These are the areas where disengagement has not yet taken place. That is, with a drop of a bullet or a accidental firing, there is a chance of full-blown war that can take place between India and China. Entire winter, our armed forces have been at battle-ready position there. So therefore, it highlights that the intention of China was never to go back, and that there is a twofold message aimed to learn and internalize the spirit of Xi Jinping. All of this is part of their propaganda, but for us, what it puts into highlight is that Indo China border dispute is an important topic, and you cannot ignore it. All right. The areas where disengagement has not yet taken place also becomes important. Then on the right hand side, the G7 leaders All right. So where is the summit taking place? The summit is taking place in the United States at the Caribbean Bay in Cornwall. Two things were decided yesterday. First is Build Back Better World. All right. What is this in response to? It is in response to the project that China runs, that is the Belt and Road Initiative. All right. Under this, China has been planning to build infrastructure for developing countries. But now the G7 countries have countered this by stating that, see, we also have a better mechanism to do it. And what is the name of the project? It is Build Back Better. Two reasons why this is important. First is the name, obviously, what is the project G7 has launched in counter to the Belt and Road Initiative. Good. Now, what is the relevance of this? First, under the BRI, what this gives is it gives China strategic advantage and direct economic interest in developing countries. It strengthens the position of its economy. And secondly, the BRI is linked with debt trap diplomacy. What it does is, a poor country, or it is very similar to what a moneylender does to a poor person. The moneylender knows the poor person will never be able to repay the loan. However, it still provides the loan and says, I will charge you very high interest. What I know that you will not be able to pay back. In return, they take collateral, sometimes they take land, and land in another country is part of how you can gain military advantage, right? Vis-a-vis your enemies. This is what China's BRI is all about. The moment someone is unable to pay back, the territory where China has invested or built the infrastructure project, it gains control of that area. By this, China not only expands its economic interest, because under BRI, jobs and the entire infrastructure is conducted by Chinese companies and workers. So it provides employment to them, and it in turn never generates real income for the country which is receiving this investment. Which is a prime example of this is Pakistan. Pakistan has been a client state of China for so long, but its economy has still been stalling. It has not grown at positive levels, and its debt has risen at record level year on year, which shows that, see, there is now a need to build back better world as the project. That, see, there needs to be transparent infrastructure projects with no hidden overturns or movement, in terms that, see, even if we are building something, for example, India has built investments in Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, but we have not taken control of that area. There is no condition that in case you are unable to pay us back, it is not that this territory will then become theirs, which is similar to what Japan has also done. Japan is funding our bullet train project, but in case India falters on its payment, doesn't mean that Japan will take ownership of the land where the bullet train runs in India. So that is the stark difference between BRI and the Build Back Better project of the G7 countries. Then the second thing that they have agreed upon is the Caribbean Bay Declaration. It is a declaration to prepare the world for future pandemics, where countries come together to formulate a timeline and a mechanism to deal with the pandemic in case a future one arises. How will we respond to it? What will be the timeline? How will we fund? So that all these problems that happened with COVID-19, where the disease already was present in Wuhan since November, but continued to spread across the world until January, February, and then it was realized that, oh, the problem is too big, countries went into lockdown, but by then the virus had spread to all parts of the world. So this is in response to that, all right? And the third part of it is already the minimum corporate taxation that they have agreed. We'll be talking about it on the profile section. On the side of it is also the Russia-US summit that will take place between Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden. Putin hopes that this would be better because he is not impulsive as Donald Trump. Then apart from this, security of airports, embassies is Afghanistan responsibility. So this is now, as Western countries move out of Afghanistan, the threat is that the country will fall into hands of Taliban. Turkey has been trying to flex its control there and has shown willingness that, see, if no one wants to put troops, I want to put my troops in Afghanistan. So it needs to be seen what happens, but this is ongoing development of post-US withdrawal of forces. All right. Then moving on the FAQ page. So on the right hand side, changes in the vaccination policy from 21st June, as the Prime Minister announced in his national address. There has been a change in vaccination policy. Now 75% of the vaccines that are manufactured in India will be purchased by the central government. 25% will be purchased by private hospitals. The central government will pay for all these vaccines that it procures, and it will be charged free of cost. The state governments do not have to incur any expenditure. The third change is that now a price has been fixed for private hospitals, how much they can charge for service fee. All right. So that is the change. But for us, the most important news is Bitcoin push. El Salvador has become the first country to recognize Bitcoin as its official currency, along with the US dollar. So El Salvador as a country in Central America does not have its own currency. All right. It relies on US dollar as its official currency. It does not print any currency because El Salvador as an economy is mostly reliant with trade on US. So the purpose is, when you have your own domestic currency, it is volatile based on the economy in your country. But El Salvador knows that their economy is reliant on US. People mostly earned in US dollars in their economy. So they had removed their own currency altogether in 2001. But now trade disputes had cropped up between US and El Salvador. So El Salvador has now decided to recognize Bitcoin as its official currency, also along with US dollar. Now, two things. Cryptocurrencies are what? They are a system of currencies based on technology of Bitcoin, blockchain, right? Apart from Bitcoin, there are other cryptocurrencies also that exist in the world. However, Bitcoin is the one that has been officially recognized. But now, cryptocurrencies have two problems. One, they are not controlled by any central banks. So if supply of money increases in the economy, the inflation in the economy naturally rises. This is something that central banks then are there in each country to regulate. But the fact that there is no central bank to regulate cryptocurrencies, they are highly volatile. For example, one Bitcoin was equivalent to 61,000 US dollars in the month of April, but right now is trading at just half the price, that is 30,000 US dollars. So that is first, they are highly volatile. All right. Therefore, a lot of countries have launched their own digital currencies, such as the Chinese digital yuan or the digital sterling in United Kingdom. India, as the decision of the Supreme Court had done, the ban on engaging in cryptocurrencies was taken away, but people can invest in cryptocurrencies just as they invest in stocks and debentures. All right. But it is still not an official mechanism of payment. Countries also do not want people to engage in it because it's highly volatile. Imagine losing half the value of your investment just with no fault of your own. So that is first problem. The second problem with cryptocurrencies is mining. The reason for huge fall in value of Bitcoin recently is because of the crackdown on mining of cryptocurrencies by Chinese authorities. A lot of mining of cryptocurrencies used to take place in China, but to mine a cryptocurrency, basically to run the software, because see, where stocks trade, there are stock exchange created. All right, incur huge expenditure in terms of high speed internet. To run cryptocurrencies or support them, you need even more elaborate technical apparatus, and that incurs huge amount of carbon footprint and also energy resources. All right, a country such as El Salvador then now needs to compound for this, that Bitcoin production is estimated to generate 22 to 22.9 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions a year. This is similar to the emissions level of an entire country such as Jordan and Sri Lanka. So huge. As more and more countries or people invest in these cryptocurrencies, the carbon emission will go even up at a time when countries are reining in technology to provide for reduction of carbon emissions. All right, so those are the two associated risks: volatility and high carbon footprint. All right, that also need to be noted down. Then on the right hand side, new guidelines on remdesivir steroids was never seen to be the real long term treatment for COVID-19, and it is the health complications that have developed because of heavy use of steroids, on which new guidelines have come in about when and how they can be administered. All right, not relevant for us because it's scientific knowledge. Then on the profile page is also about G7. So this talks about the history of G7. First formed in 1975. In 1998, it became G8 with Russia there. In 2014, Russia was removed from the group after it annexed Crimea from Ukraine. When it was originally formulated, 70% of the world GDP was within G7. Today, that stands at 40%. 40% of the world GDP, but huge amount of investment capabilities come with G7 grouping. In terms of this, it highlights what the aims of G7 now is. This summit of G7 is seen as something that would now build onto multilateralism, what G7 originally stood for. Why? Because as long as Donald Trump chaired the US presidency, he did not believe in multilateralism. He did not believe in historical ties between allies. He believed in transactional diplomacy. If you pay me this much, I will provide you this much. Based on how much you pay, I will support you. No real consistency in foreign policy. Therefore, this year G7 summit has been able to do so much more. It has already agreed on minimum taxation level, which is going to provide huge amount of resources to the world. The task now is to make everyone agree to a minimum corporate taxation. Then apart from this is the other problems that exist is to counter China. The invitation extended to Australia, South Korea, India and South Africa to the G7 summit provides that G7 wants to expand to liberal democracies as a counterweight to China, which is now seen as a risk to the world order in general. And therefore, the cooperation of these countries at G7 will be important to see how they counter China at large. All right. Then apart from this is the Build Back Better project, and which is a counterweight to the BRI of China. And then lastly is vaccinization. G7 has committed that it will provide 1 billion doses of COVID vaccine to the world to poor countries. It is seen that, this will not be enough. If you have to counter China, you have to do far more for the developing world, and it needs to be seen whether they will commit more or not. Then on the right hand side, Anup Chandra Pandey, a chief secretary of Uttar Pradesh and a bureaucrat of old time, has now been appointed the election commissioner, not the chief election commissioner, an election commissioner. He will continue until 2024, so he'll be overseeing the next set of assembly elections prior to the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. He's seen amicable towards the current government, and this is his profile, but for us the name of the personality becomes more important. Apart from this, the central government has come up with new policies for subsidies to electric vehicles. Now, in terms of this, the name of the policy, which is faster adoption of manufacturing of electric vehicles, phase 2. All right. Now, 15,000 rupees per kilowatt will be the subsidy that the central government will provide on two-wheelers. The industry is calling it as a game changer, as it will bring down the cost of electric vehicles up to the level of traditional or combustible engine vehicles. So it needs to be seen how it does. Electric vehicles are also important because they are low maintenance, low fuel cost, and lower carbon emissions. So therefore, they are seen as the mobility of the future. So the policy name becomes important. All right. Then on the sporting side, as of now, Mirabai is the lone weightlifter of Indian contingent to go to Tokyo. So the name, keep noting these things down. A shocking event, but good at the end, was Christian Eriksen, a Danish football player, incapacitated himself during the field and then was immediately taken to the hospital. He is now stabilized, but what happened to him has not yet been told. Here is the picture of the footballers covering so that it was not reported. All right, he was given CPR on the field also. But in terms of French Open, there are news that you need to note down. So first is Barbara Krejcikova has won the French Open. She is the 6th new winner in the past 6 years. It is also the first time in 40 years a Czech Republic participant has won the female French Open title. All right. So that needs to be noted down, the winner in the women's category. And if you are a tennis fan, you must have watched the semi-final between Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal, where Djokovic defeated Rafael Nadal in what was his only third defeat on clay court in 16 years. And this was Djokovic's second victory against Rafael Nadal at the Roland Garros. All right, so he will now be competing in the final, which will take place today. All right, so therefore that is also news that you need to see related to French Open. Apart from this, on sporting side, nothing of real note. So make sure today you revise the news from the entire past week. Along with that, you note down about G7, the entire G7 summit, Build Back Better project, then minimum corporate taxation, which is 15%, and then 1 billion doses of vaccines. 3 main decisions. Apart from this, revise about the LAC tensions between India and China. All right. And the FAME policy. On that note, take care everyone. Please give the video a thumbs up if you like the work that we do, and I will see you all tomorrow.